And for more on China's role at the Nuclear Security Summit, we're joined now by Tong Zhao in Beijing. He's an associate of the Carnegie-Tsinghua Center for Global Policy. Why don't we start there? It's really interesting, the Center of Excellence. You saw the U.S. Secretary of Energy talking about it. It's remarkable to see the U.S. and China, they have their differences, but when it comes to this issue, there seems to be a partnership between China and the U.S. on the nuclear issue, both working closely on the Iran agreement, and they also work very closely on the sanctions against the DPRK. Give me your sense of the relationship between these two countries on this issue.
Yeah, because China and the U.S. as two countries that have very different history, culture, and political system. It is inevitable that they have some different views on certain issues. But when it comes to nuclear terrorism, that's a common threat faced by the entire international community. The United States and China, they have a fundamental common interest in working together to combat nuclear terrorism. And the Nuclear Security Summit is a good opportunity for the two leaders to have a good discussion about how to maintain the system of promoting international cooperation on nuclear security going into the future.
It's a very compressed 48 hours when you think about it, just 2 days. What do you hope will come out of this summit?
I think there will likely to be a communique issued by the conclusion of the summit. The communique will probably indicate a high-level commitment by the heads of state who participate in the summit. But in order to implement this political commitment, there is likely to be a set of specific action plans which will try to enhance the role of existing international organizations and institutions, such as the International Atomic Energy Agency, the United Nations, and the Interpol. These international organizations will have to play a more important role to promote international cooperation going forward. And it's also reported that it's likely that we will see this so-called nuclear security contact group, which will consist of senior nuclear experts and officials from several countries. And this group will serve the purpose of translating the political commitments made at the summit to concrete action on the ground.
Let me ask you this. When the United States president first talked about this idea of a summit, it was in Prague in 2009, and he said he wanted a world without nuclear weapons. Right now, 9 countries have a total of more than 15,000 nuclear weapons, and the United States and Russia possess about 93% of them. Russia isn't there. The U.S. still has a large arsenal, while China, the U.K., and France have mere hundreds of nuclear weapons. What do you think these two countries should be doing to lead by example, to really send a clear message about nuclear weapons?
I think you touch upon a very important issue here, because so far, all the previous summits have mostly addressed only civilian nuclear and radiological materials. They have not made much progress on securing military nuclear materials. And this is one area we have to focus on in the future, because military nuclear material constitute more than 80% of the entire global stockpile. And in terms of a Chinese role, I think China can make a positive contribution by increasing transparency regarding its military nuclear material. China, over the past few years, has already taken steps to increase nuclear transparency, but certainly there is still room for improvement. But it will take time for China to gradually figure out how to best promote nuclear transparency without adversely affecting its own national security interests.
Tong Zhao, thank you so much for joining us from Beijing. Certainly appreciate it.